How's it going, guys? This is your boy Hayes, and today we're going to be on the 7.1.5 making an Enhancement Shaman guide for you. Now, first of all, before we jump into that, I got to do a quick little update. The same day the legendary dropped for the Enhancement Shaman, I also got another legendary to drop on my Frost DK, and I ended up getting the Howling Blast increased AoE damage, which has done absolutely wonders for my DPS in Mythic Pluses and stuff. Just absolutely insane replacing these increased movement speed boots. Like, it is absolutely day and night in DPS. It's nuts. But anyways, guys, going to be jumping into this guide. It is mainly going to be focusing on Enhancement Shaman, survivability 1v1 in BG situations so you can maximize damage while also staying alive. So let's jump into this.
It's who we are, it's what we do, we've come so far, and now we pay the price, so don't even cry. The world is breaking down, and I cannot leave the ground.
Going over these talents, we're going to be starting off kind of just discussing talents, why we're using them in certain situations, why they're strong in 1v1, and why they're strong in BG situations. Now, for the level 15 talent, I like to use Boulder Fist for the increased 5% damage on all my attacks. It increases my burst. It increases absolutely everything. I find it amazing. Now, there is one thing that kind of sucks about using Boulder Fist is it does limit the amounts of times that you can use it because there is a cooldown on this ability. It's not very big, but it's a cooldown. What you will notice is you will have less burst healing because when you're using something like Windsong, you will actually proc a lot more rock biters because you can just spam it. That'll give you more power to actually heal. But the sad thing is you can only pop off about 5 healing surges until you go so I end up using Boulder Fist in the long run. It gives you more damage, it gives you more consistency, and it gives you more burst. So that's what I like to go with. Plus Windsong is kind of a larger cooldown, which I do know some people that like to use Windsong and go Fury of Air for quite a bit of AoE, but personally it's not one of my favorite specs, and I really feel like I'm sacrificing a lot to try and maximize on some AoE pressure inside Battlegrounds, but I like focusing on the burst a lot better when it comes to Enhancement Shamans. So the level 30 talent I like to use is Windrush Totem. Now, Feral Lunge would be great inside like healer DPS or 3s inside of Arena, but in my opinion, Windrush Totem is going to be one of the things, even though it's a 2-minute cooldown, that's really going to save your life quite a bit of the time. You can use this as an offensive or, of course, a defensive cooldown for your Enhancement Shaman, especially since we have, of course, Ghost Wolf form or Travel form, which we can run away at full speed. Even if we're slowed, we can still get away. And it's one of the big things that we're going to have to utilize for survivability on Enhancement Shaman inside BGs or inside dueling situations or double DPS 2s is kiting. So Windrush Totem comes in really handy, really handy inside Battlegrounds, because I noticed when I was running Feral Lunge, I didn't have quite enough movement speed increases to avoid most of the damage or burst I was taking if I was being focused, and that was one of the things that actually got me to LOS or let me get away from the target long enough to throw down Stun Totem, things like that are actually going to amount to quite a bit in PvP. Now, the level 45 talent I like to use, of course, is Lightning Surge Totem for the stun, 5-second stun AoE. It's amazing. You can hit multiple people, you can hit healers, you can hit DPS that are opening up on you, and it affects everybody. Earth Grab Totem is also good if there are a ton of melee, but in my opinion, I will stick with the stun because it is a lot more versatile when you're fighting casters and, of course, DPS. And in BGs, you're going to get casters and melee quite a bit. So it's going to be one of the reasons why I choose certain talents over certain things, is because of mechanical stability inside the Battlegrounds. Now, for the level 60 talent, I like to use Ancestral Swiftness for excess haste. I like lots of haste. Now, Hailstrom is also good to use because it is a mechanical slow, which also increases the damage on that because you will be using that quite a bit in battleground situations, but I like to take that increased haste, and it just turns my burst into something nuts. So again, I'm just maximizing burst using Ancestral Swiftness because a lot of PvP at the moment, at least when you're coming up against melees and things like that, are going to burst into you really hard, and one of your things, one of your best defenses on an Enhancement Shaman is definitely going to be your offense, and that's one of the same things with a Frost DK, but we got survivability and we can kite, so that's amazing. As for level 75 talents, I like using Tempest as for some melee burst when I'm combining it with Ascendance and double DPS. Also in duels, things like that, Tempest and Ascendance are going to be your best friend. You still can use Overcharge with Ascendance, but I feel like it really lines up the burst well with Ascendance if you actually do go Tempest to get the 2 Storm Strikes in. And if you got like Reflect Totem down, things like that going on, you get a couple Wind Fury procs at ranged, you have your buffs up, and you literally just get an insane burst that'll make people explode. And that's one of the reasons why you're going to be rocking Tempest and Ascendance. You still can use Overcharge, it's still viable with it, because an Overcharge basically causes you to hit just as hard, but honestly, it's not as much consistency, and you're not going to proc Wind Fury off of it. So you really got to kind of think about that, because Ascendance is kind of like, you know, that range DPS, also melee DPS, so you're going to get just tons of procs, tons of crits. And really what makes it amazing in duels is the fact that you throw that up, you hit them with a Boulder Fist, and generally you get a proc within 1 or 2 melees at range because they can't get away from you, and then you just unload your Storm Strikes on them at range. It's going to be the only way you really take on, I'd say, good mages in duels, probably good boomies. Really anything that's majorly range, you're going to have to be doing something like that. Now, you definitely can beat those classes rocking the Overcharge spec like you see me doing here. I like using Crash Lightning for Now Burst and some AoE. Fear of Air, like I talked about before, you can combine that with Windsong. You could even use it with Boulder Fist. But in my opinion, I just don't like to use it. It kind of messes up kind of the flow, I feel like, in PvP. I do like using Sundering, but not nearly as much as having the consistency from Crashing Storm, since when it comes to Enhancement Shaman, consistency is also key, because we deal a ton of consistent damage all the time. And that's one of the reasons you'll see me using Landslide, is to increase our agility by 8% per 10 seconds. That comes off to Boulder Fist again, and it really just makes that rotation smooth, throwing out Boulder Fist becoming really important. Throwing up, of course, Flame Tongue, using Frostband if you need to, and then from there you can just blow major cooldowns, blow off that 45-second shamanism, and your burst becomes insane. And of course, drop, you know, the proc Storm Strikes, and then smack them with that big lightning bolt at the end, and it just decimates people. And that's one of the key too, is you really got to rotate that lightning bolt correctly with this spec, and we'll get into that in a few, how to go about doing that, at least the quick as possible, to get people off you. As for the PvP talents, I'll be rocking the Medallion, because you're really going to have to be able to use that against certain classes to survive on a Shaman, as we do not have as much survivability. I mean, they do have quite a bit of survivability from what I'm used to, but as far as something catching you invis, you know, not having any Maelstrom power, they're kind of like Frosty Case. They become starved in the opener if somebody shuts you down quickly. So you really got to buy yourself a little bit of time, unless you're rocking the Ascendance, of course, and which you can kite at range, and it's a lot more fun in 1v1 and double DPS. Anyways, the next one I'm going to be using Reinforced Armor. I really do like that 10% extra health for staying alive. Plus, people don't seem to focus you nearly as much for some reason when they see you have, like, you know, 3.3 instead of 2.7 or 2.9. I don't know. Maybe it's like a mental thing to people. Who knows? Next, I'll be using Counter-Strike Totem. This is mainly for defensive, of course. If you're being focused, you throw this down with your burst and you hit somebody. Literally, you can kill them in like 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds sometimes. It's absolutely nuts what this can proc, of course, when you're rolling out your full rotation and you're reflecting 100% damage back on the person. Now, how do we use Counter-Strike Totem? There is some nifty ways you can go about using it. I usually throw it out with my pets, of course, and when I use Bloodlust. So I grow, my pets are a little bit bigger, and then we attack the target, and hopefully it hides the totem. The other thing you can do is, you know where the totem drops. Usually it drops off to your back left. Now, if you walk up to this wall, say over here in this area, and you're running at a target, and you drop your totem right here behind this pillar, and you're fighting this target right here, that totem still gonna zap him, and he doesn't even know it exists. So that's one of the ways you could really mess with people's minds with Counter-Strike Totem, which is pretty nice. The other thing I like using is Spectral Recovery, which comes in so handy, because again, we only get 5 healing surges off when then our mana pool's spent. And of course, if that's insta-cast or if it's hard cast, it's just going to drain the crud out of your mana. So you could go Purifying Waters, which heals you for 5% of your total health, but that's also going to drain 44 100 mana or 44,000 mana every time. That's almost the equivalent to healing surge. So you're only going to be able to do that, maybe 6 times, maybe most likely 5 times. But then again, all you have to resort to at that point is your spectral recovery. And as I said earlier in the video, kiting is going to become a major factor in survivability inside BGs or double DPS. And if you can't actually kite things inside double DPS, that's when you come out with Ascendance and you literally just burst something's face off faster than it bursts your face off. It's kind of crazy. It's fun. I do enjoy it. As for the next PvP talent, I'm using Forked Lightning right now. As you can see, I'm only level 24 honor talents. This character is like not even a week old at this point. But more than likely, when I get them stacked up, I'll be rocking probably Ride the Lightning for more AoE. But if I want more single target burst, you could actually take Static Cling. I will have to test that out a little bit more, but more than likely, I'll be taking Ride the Lightning over Forked Lightning, since more than likely this hits 3 additional targets. This hits 2 targets. You're going to get a lot more cleave, obviously, out of the Chain Lightning, but we'll see how much the damage actually DRs once it hit multiple targets. But I can imagine that's probably going to make me deal more damage. If I remember right, on early beta, this was the one I was rocking on my Enhancement Shaman. As for the last talent, in BGs, duels, things like that, Shamanism is the only way to go. Now, if you're doing like rated BGs and your whole group wants Lust, obviously you can take one of the other things to benefit your whole group. As in like a solo act on your Shaman, Shamanism is the only way to go. 45-second cooldown on Bloodlust, and it lasts for 10 seconds. You throw that up with Doom Winds, which also increases your haste, and that's where that major burst comes from that just rips people apart in seconds. Of course, you got Counter-Strike Totem Rip, you got Wind Fury proccing, you got just insane things pumping out. It's crazy what you can do when you actually hit the peak on a Shaman burst. Now, that's going to be it for these talents. Now, as for Artifact Weapon, of course, you need to maximize them out. I've still got, I think I only need, 300,000 more artifact power to go, and then I've got 34 talents, and then I'll be set for PvP on the Enhancement Shaman. I'll decide if I want to pump out more for PvE and whether I'm going to do endgame PvE on him. As you saw in the DK, got the helmet, so I'm pretty stoked to actually push further content, because that is a huge change in my DPS from haste boots to helmet. Alright, so yeah. Definitely want to start that. Of course, the artifact talents at the top, they don't actually matter. As for stat priority in PvP, it does not matter. Item level scales up to 860, 1%. So if you're at 860, you are at 6% scaling, and if you are at 870, you are at 6.1% scaling, because after that it DRs. So pushing gear past that doesn't matter too much, but as like my DK, I like to push everything to the max, and so I do. But I still have to decide if I'm going to do that on this character or not quite yet. But let's go ahead and get over to a couple macros. The first macro I got is kind of just a Raptor cooldown with Blood Fury, which is my racial. If you don't have Blood Fury, obviously you're not going to be doing that if you're a different class, or not class, race. Anyways, so yeah, it's just basically Raptors thrown up with some extra AP. From there, the next cooldown you're going to need is... let's see, I got right here. I call it Blood Doom for some reason. Show tooltip Doom Winds / cash Counter-Strike Totem / cash Doom Winds / cash Bloodlust. So basically, this is when I run into combat. It's like melee versus melee. This guy's beating the crud out of me, and I need to quick burst on this guy to rip his face off. And that's one of the reasons I survived so well in the Enhancement Shaman, is because I burst so quick. Of course, using macros like this, and increases that time, because there is quite a bit of buttons on an Enhancement Shaman, surprisingly, compared to other classes. So what we do here with these two little macros is pretty fun. This is going to be, for the most part, the basis of your burst. You also got to remember to throw in your little lightning bolts. But what you got to do to actually peak up to this is go in on a target, hit him with a boulder fist. You got to get a little bit of maelstrom. And then, of course, use Flame Tongue. Now, if you want to just go in for some big bursts, you throw up your Raptors, you throw up that second cooldown, you hit them with a Lightning Bolt, you smack in on some Chain Lightning and start dropping them Storm Strike procs until, of course, you get up your next Lightning Bolt and smack them with that big, like, 500-600k Lightning Bolt again, and just kind of rotate that cooldown. Now, what you notice about my little rotation here is I'm using Boulder Fist when it comes up, but I don't necessarily DR it every time, just get enough to actually have enough Maelstrom, and then kind of space it out so you get the complete 10-second buff. But more likely it comes off DR before that's ever going to fall off, unless you have people kiting you, of course. As for when to use Crash Lightning when there's multiple people, because it cleaves multiple targets, increasing the damage of your Storm Strike by targets hit. So that's definitely something you want to put up before using your major Storm Strike. Now, if you want to go for maximum burst on this, what you're going to do is go in on somebody, of course, you're going to put up your buffs, and you're going to Crash Lightning before you actually burst. Now, you definitely want to get Storm Strike pops before maximizing on that the cooldown, the Blood Doom right there, and of course your Raptors. So you throw out your Raptors, you're going to throw up Blood Doom, use that Crash Lightning, get a Storm Strike proc, use 2 of those, and then smack the Lightning at the end. A big Lightning prick. That's going to be like maximizing your now burst with the Enhancement Shaman with this spec. And of course, if he's trying to get away from you, got to go ahead and throw up Frostbrand, things like that. Now, that's a quick cover on burst and just kind of mild damage. Now, if we're going to go for just normal rotation, what you want to do is keep your lightning bolt on DR at all times. Make sure you have at least 40 maelstrom before you do that. You're going to be using Crash Lightning, of course, before Storm Strike, and make sure to keep up your flame tongue at all times. Now, when do you use Lava Lash? Now, let's say like right now, I've got a lot of DR time, I've got Lightning Bolt up, I don't need to use Flame Tongue. I can go ahead and use probably 1 or 2 Lava Lashes, but you really don't want to completely drain your Maelstrom using Lava Lash for the simple fact that you're going to need that to use Storm Strike and of course benefit from Lightning Bolt damage, which will be up every 10 seconds. So it's quite powerful. And again, the reason why we're using Lightning Bolt is mechanical stability, because a lot of classes kite and use things to get away from you, and they really will when they see a shaman running in and raptors pop up and he grows 2 feet in size and he starts hitting you like a truck with these crazy crits, and then you go to run, or he goes to run away, and you're back here on your shaman and you hit him with a lightning bolt. And that's 500k where they're running away, and they're questioning life, going, why is this shaman hitting me so hard? And then you basically have to chase him down, of course, using your Spirit Walker, using your Windrush Totem, and then keep using Lightning Bolt at range. And anytime you get in range, hit Boulder Fist to stack up more Maelstrom, and just keep shooting up with Lightning Bolt at range. Now, that is like the offensive way to land a kill. If somebody's running from you on the Enhancement Shaman, it makes it really nice to have some major range pressure. Now, also, this ability can be used as defensive range pressure. Now, as I talked before, using Ascendance in kind of a duel situation, it gives you a lot more range damage. Overcharge is kind of the same situation while using this melee consistency damage spec. So let's say this guy comes at you, he's putting out more damage, and you're caught without major cooldowns. You drop your slows, you drop, let's say, your sprint, and you get away from the guy. Now you're out here from the target. You can still use your, that was almost a million lightning bolt right there. All right, so you got range on this guy. He closes the gap. You start slapping on Boulder Fist. You start out gapping him again. You can stun him. You can go your Ghost Wolf form to get away from him. You can use LOS. You can heal yourself. But the thing you got to remember is, again, keep that lightning bolt on cooldown. That's 500k to almost a million damage sometimes popping off at any target. And truth be told, I've found that most targets can't deal with that kind of consistency damage coming at them from lightning bolt. And that's why it ended up being one of my favorite mechanical abilities to use. And I think it actually, if you line it up correctly using your Storm Strike procs, it actually ends up being outside of major burst. I think it ends up being better burst than having multiple Tempests and using Ascendance, which is absolutely insane in my opinion. But I will, of course, make some montages coming up with that. Like, I really want to get some good globals in. I tried to get over a million lightning bolts inside some battlegrounds using Sky Fury Totem and rocking Earthen Spike, but the highest I got was about 750 to about 850k, which is definitely not no laughing matter. That is a strong lightning bolt coming from a melee that hits this hard. And talking about defensives, I'm going to be going over some of these talents when you're going to be using your defenses. One of the things I like to use a lot, of course, is Ancestral Shift, which reduces the damage you take by 40%. It's also going to heal you for a bit once you get up your artifact talents, which ends up being very, very useful inside battlegrounds. And, of course, since it's a dot, very useful for kiting. Now, as I was saying before, we're going to utilize that range damage while we're kiting away as much as possible. When they get in range, you're just going to benefit off of gathering up Maelstrom as much as possible, getting some range, and of course using those insta-proc heals. Now, don't yourself. Make sure if you get far enough away, you're outside their range, you're using that Ghost Wolf to heal up, because that's 3% every 2 seconds, and you're not yourself. And of course, you generally want to try to save your mana for when you're forced inside combat with the other person, because if you're caught without mana, it's going to completely destroy your consistency. So using this is going to be key inside BGs, and of course 2 situations, kiting around the pillar to stay alive if you have to go for some kind of elongated fight, which can be really tough on a shaman, since one of the comments I got on the last video was people like the damage from shamans, they like the burst, but they didn't like the consistent survivability, and it really comes down to utilizing the kiting mechanic on a shaman to do that. Now I can show you a couple tricks here to actually utilizing your shaman's ability as for kiting. Of course, we got our Windrush Totem right here. We got Spirit Walk, which you always got to remember. Spirit Walk will also break roots. So remember that. Now, let's say we got someone coming at us. We're fighting them. We got to kite him out. And one of the things we can do is drop our slow so he can't catch us. Say he's still running fast as he's on us. What we can do is what you saw in the other videos. What I did to that rogue is I dropped my stun totem right here, and I led him right into the stun totem, and it stun totem him instantly instead of waiting a second. And that gave me enough time to get back away from this guy and, of course, shock him with lightning bolt and heal up. Perfect thing to do to people on a shaman, to kite away. And, of course, if you didn't want to do that, you go ahead and get that range on him after the stun. You can hex him. Don't try to flat cast hex on a melee who's focusing you that has a cast, unless somehow you fake cast him with something else without getting kicked. So don't try to hard cast on a melee. You will just end up dead hard casting. You will get silenced, and you will just be dead. All right, so how do you throw down a totem or something while trying to kite away on a shaman? Now, you don't just want to, like, I'm a shaman, I'm throwing down a totem, I'm running away, use that. No. What you want to do on a shaman is, let's say you got to throw down a Windrush Totem, something like that, to actually get away from the target again. What you're going to do is throw up Ghost Wolf, of course. Now, what you want to do is jump in the air when you're throwing down a totem. Why are you doing this? Because if you notice, when I leave the form and I go back in, the whole time I was in orc form, I kept that extra running speed from, of course, being inside Ghost Wolf. I didn't lose any of it. And even when you're being focused, you will still run at 100% speed. You will still be jumping at 100% speed. And by the time you land and hit that again, you will be moving again at 100% speed, while the other people are even slowed, or you're giving yourself a speed boost. Very, very important. It's the other thing I used to heal myself while inside PvP. It was one of the tricks that made my Frost DK dueling back in Worldless Draenor so effective. And it's something that newer players definitely have a harder time utilizing. See, like, I'm running away. I'm getting 2% health, 2% health, and I need, like, a big healing buff. I'll jump in the air, use my heal, and I'll go right back into Ghost Wolf form as fast as possible. Of course, generating more health as I'm running away, but also keeping full speed as I healed myself and jumped in the air. Same thing with totems. Run, jump in the air, throw down your totem, back into Ghost Wolf form. Keep that full speed while you're running. Throw down, of course, your Windrush totem. Ghost Wolf, jump, jump, jump. Same concept as before on a Frost DK. Now you guys can see why I said Enhancement Shamans really are what I was missing on a Frost DK. I missed some of those mechanical stabilities. As for purges, Resto Druids, you could use it for actually quite a lot of things inside Battlegrounds. You could actually take off some cooldowns with it. You could take off Bop with it. It becomes very, very versatile in situations like that. So remember to use that on healers, Disc Priests. It'll really piss them off. As for using Hex, you see I got some focus macros over there, but you're not going to need those for 1v1 or Battleground situations unless you want to do some, like, insane macroing for Battlegrounds. Having macros for, like, every 10 targets, that's too much. But that's probably gonna be it as for the talents on this, and of course what you're gonna be doing on this character if you guys want to be playing a shaman. You guys asked for this video. I'm pretty sure there was, like, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 9 comments on there asking for some kind of guide on how I was doing that on the shaman, what talents I was using. And again, as a refresher at the end of this video, I don't suggest using most of these inside of arena. I would say there are better ways to go about using it, kind of like taking feral lunge, things like that. But this is just the basic spec for survival, 1v1 situations, and of course battlegrounds, so you can run around and brawl with people, not get your face punched off, and get kited out and die a lot. You can still manage to fight ranged melee, things like that in these situations. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like on it if you did, and until next time, this was your boy Hazed.